So even if we just work in black and white, the distribution of basically what is bright and what is dark matters a lot. So I mean, you would first choose sort of, I think it's important to base it around the ethnicity of your character, because if you go for dark or light skin, essentially you want to make sure that everything around it then supports that choice. Like you would want to make sure that there's contrast still, no matter what you decide. So in this case, I probably want to be more careful that I then go for a lighter material around the head, and maybe even the headpiece as well, because then I can keep contrast in the area that needs it the most, the focal point. Like I said earlier, this is where we want to make sure we separate out the big, medium, small relationships that we've made. So if we keep the upper body as a clear separate color to the lower body, that can be a great way to do it. So say I made the lower body this light white color. I can then go for a darker section in the middle. And these smaller details that I put in, because they don't interrupt this large shape relationship, I can use it to make sure I have enough contrast around the head and still balance out the use of tone in the lower body. So this might be how I end up choosing to color this character. And so coming back to like the use of colors throughout, if I then have a particular highlight color I'd like to use, having it repeat within the character design is often quite important, so it doesn't feel out of place. And in this case, it might be that I add some sort of color to this this large piece of cloth, because it feels like a big statement, sort of fashionable element. And then if I choose a couple of places to repeat this again, it could be that on both arms is how I then balance that out. So I incorporate it in somewhere else in the design without then losing the significance it has used for this piece of fabric. Because these are much smaller, they don't compete. Whereas you can imagine if I made these trousers purple, they have now overtaken completely in their importance, because they're a larger area and they're more important to the character's pose. As far as the rule of 3 thing, like I was describing with the using it in a couple of places only, if I added purple down here in the feet or something, I now find this to be a less appealing distribution of these colors, because we kind of have these equally sized points that use the same color. You've got like the forearms and then the 2 feet, and then we've got one big thing up here. And what would be far more appealing is to either leave it as this group of 3 that we had before, or to at least add use a different element so that we can keep some sort of hierarchy in the shape usage between them. If you look at where I've put the lightest color in this design already, I've got a medium chunk in the top, the small detail around the neck, and then the large piece at the bottom. So trying to use the shapes that you've already designed in here and apply colors accordingly to them is a really important way to reinforce the design work that you've already put into place. And then, yeah, the use of textures and colors and stuff on top of this will, again, be really useful to separate out and add basically interest throughout it. So if I kept the trousers down here as like a very matte and dull fabric, then I could go for a much shinier one above up here. So this is where the sort of the lighting can really show off the different materials. So in this case, I might just go for like these highlights that wrap around this fabric and show that it's far more reflective than the matte material below. And yeah, so using this to provide contrast between the two it is a very good way to separate these out more, because otherwise we feel like there's there's little movement between the character from top to bottom. The nice thing we would then do here is that the skin itself can have a very soft rendering, so it will have these deeper, richer colors around areas that the light hits, and we can use the subsurface scattering and things like that to show the softness of this material in comparison to that of the fabric below it. And this is essentially all part of using contrast within your design to make sure that things stay interesting and stay appealing throughout. So yeah, up here it would just be including the sort of subsurface stuff that makes this skin look soft versus the hard and more neutral tones of the stuff below. So yeah, all of these design rules that you've used in the creation of the base design of the character can then be applied again to all of this stuff, and drawing from the reference that you've gathered earlier is really important as well. So at this point, we want to really sell the idea of the Wacom material, basically this dark shiny plastic, on the elements that use those. So to make this stuff as clear as possible for the viewer, making this a dark shiny plastic is the most sensible thing, or at least making it something that has that same quality. So it could be a very dark wood or something like that, where you don't put too much emphasis on the grain of the wood and the patination of that texture, and instead just focus on how the wood could be polished and have this clean shine over it. And that's basically a way that you want to make sure you keep these relationships clear for any viewer that's seeing this design for the first time and like trying to understand it. Like always, going back to just looking at the colors without like any of the detail on top, whilst you're still in this stage where you can easily add color and remove it, it's really important to do this. So, you know, I still have the freedom to very roughly say, actually, the white isn't working here, and change it to black. And this might be the route I want to go down. It certainly changes the vibe of the character. I may also just think that the purple's not right, and so I can change that now. And you can see how these larger changes, whilst you keep things very simple, it's really worth exploring, because now she feels far more sort of calm and collected. Like, I don't get the sense that there's sort of anger or passion. She feels far more a sort of slow and steady and analytical thinker. There's also this nice allusion to the flowing of water by making this cape bit here blue, versus the red that we had, or the purple we had before. This feels far more fiery, like they're like sort of going to get angry in the middle of a fight, or sort of shout out sort of things to goad their enemy into attacking back or losing their cool. So at this point, it's really important to make sure you're still loose with your design work, so you can push things around and find what suits your personality, the personality of your character best. The same thing with making the trousers darker. It's actually quite nice, because now we have this clear light to dark as well as small to big relationship as we go down from the top to the bottom. And so, yeah, it's really now sort of up to you what feels more appealing. Like in this case, the black makes sense for that relationship, but also it makes her feel a bit more serious. And I think the light keeps her feeling lighter and potentially friendlier, potentially like she's definitely on the good side. The black could do the opposite. She could be a bit more of like an antagonist. Although with the blue, I think that actually changes that feeling. The opposite would then be if I kept the trousers white and then made the top dark. It would be interesting to see what that would end up being like. And yeah, I think this is also very satisfying, because now we also have this clear stepping of the big to small and light to dark. So